Today, I would like to begin my talk with a story from Master San, the second Dharma master of Won Buddhism. One day, a wooden toy and a clay toy talked to each other. Wooden toy said to the clay toy, "I am so worried about you. Since you are made out of soil, you are likely to collapse easily." The clay toy said to the wooden toy, "I am worried about you. When I'm broken down, I will just come back to the earth where I originally came from. However, you are made out of wood. What if there is flood? You will be inevitably floating around in the flood without knowing where you are going. Getting so damp, you will eventually be rotten away. What a pity." Can you guess the message of this story that Master San wanted to deliver to his disciples? After he told this story, Master San said that the most pitiful people in the world are those who cannot find their shelter, either for their mind or for their body, and just float around like the wooden toy in the story. When I read this, I thought maybe the enlightened masters may see us unawakened people with the same perspective that the clay toy has toward the wooden toy. Have you ever thought that our minds can be floating around? He also uses another analogy. When the wind blows, either tailwind or headwind, small branches will be fluttering and finally broken. The leaves will fall and tumble to the ground, whirling all around. This happens when the branches are not strong enough and the leaves are too light. Even soft and gentle breeze can make them wave. Likewise, when our mind is not settled, it can be easily disturbed even by a slight trigger. I think this is very interesting analogies. Swaying branches or leaves in the wind, wooden toy that is sweeping away in the flood. These images have something in common. They are all in the state of losing the control of their own movement and being swept by some external power without knowing where they end up arriving. These visual images actually help me to become better aware of my mind. Imagine that our mind is a tree. What kinds of winds make your branches sway? Today, I'd like to introduce the two kinds of winds that make our minds sway based on Master San's teaching. So two kinds of winds are tailwind and headwind. When I run, if a tailwind blows from the back, it helps me to run faster, which makes me feel good. However, if I only want the tailwind all the time, it will cause me to be anxious. I check the direction of the wind every time before I start running and will be disappointed if it's the headwind, not the tailwind. I might even feel like not wanting to run because it's not the tailwind. So when I say tailwinds in life today, it means things that we like so much that possibly make us become attached to them. The meaning of headwinds is the opposite. It is something like obstacles in our life that prevent us from running as fast as we can. They make us feel frustrated, disappointed, and even depressed. I would like to invite you to think about our own mind when it is disturbed or agitated by many different triggers, especially with these visual images and with the same perspective that Master Jeongsan and other saints would have toward us ordinary people, and with the same clarity and with a non-judgmental and compassionate perspectives. Each and every one would have different things that we particularly like or dislike. However, there are some tailwinds that are so nice and sweet that most people aspire to get them. And there are some headwinds that are so bitter and harsh that most people want to avoid them. Our practice is to maintain our inner stillness and invite more peace to our life by being clearly aware of the reactions of our mind, not becoming entangled with them. Let me first list some of the different tailwinds. First, riches. Most people want to have more money and property. We need money because it enables us to get things that we want and that we need. It is not possessions that are the problem. We need to earn money, save money, and spend money wisely. It is our attachment to them that is the problem. These days, with the development of scientific technologies, there are much more things that attract our senses. Electric devices, nice clothes and furniture, nice houses, cars, etc. When we are blown by the tailwind of money and material stuff, we want more and more, endlessly. More than what we actually need and more than what we can afford. Attachment to money even makes family fight over an inheritance and don't even say hello to each other. Friends would betray each other for money, and it causes all kinds of crimes and even wars. We often hear the terrible news that somebody murdered his or her spouse, friends, or parents because of money. All this happens when our mind is blown away by the tailwind of money and float around, losing our true original mind. We need to be aware of it. Another thing that many people love is alcohol. They love it so much that just smelling alcohol a little bit makes them feel good. If they meet their drinking buddy, they are so happy. Just seeing the sign of a bar make them feel like drinking even just a little. Drinking small amounts, especially red wine, is linked to various health benefits. On the other hand, alcohol is addictive and highly toxic, especially when you drink too much. What happens when you are blown by the tailwind of alcohol? It can cause severe negative effects on both physical and mental health. If you tend to drink excessively or notice that alcohol causes problems in your life, then you are being blown by the wind of alcohol. You should avoid it as much as possible. In Korea, there is a saying about alcohol, and by the way, Korean people love alcohol. So it goes, at first you drink alcohol, and after some time, alcohol drink alcohol. This means now you cannot control it. And finally, alcohol drink you. And this means that you may ruin your life because of alcohol. Because of its toxic aspect, the fourth precept of the first 10 precepts of Won Buddhism is do not consume intoxicant without due cause. The fundamental reason why intoxication is prohibited in Buddhism traditionally is because it is the basis of heedfulness, which can cause a lot of suffering to us. So another tailwind of human being is gambling. Those who are into gambling, even though alcohol or money may not trigger them at all, if they become addicted to gambling, they do not even sleep, nor take care of their household. They lose their mind in gambling. It also impacts the way in which the person relates to his or her family or friends. I watched a documentary film about gambling addiction. In that film, the director interviewed a man who used to be an owner of a very stable business. This guy had lost all his money in gambling. But he did not stop because he could not give up the hope that he could earn all the money back someday. And one day he got a phone call from his wife. She said that their daughter, who was studying abroad, died in a car accident. Do you know what? He could not leave the casino for her daughter's funeral, which made him feel terribly guilty ever since. Just like alcohol, gambling becomes a problem when it cannot be controlled and when it interferes with finances, relationships, and the workplace. They may not realize they have a problem for some time, just like the wooden toy does not know where it was floating away. All kinds of substantial addiction are the same. This is why one Buddhist precept prohibits gambling too. There are other tailwinds such as power, fame, and sex. We have to be careful not to be blown by the sweet tailwinds of all those. When we are aware that tailwind blows in our minds, we have to be on guard and be careful not to be floating around like the wooden toy. Now let's think about headwinds. Headwinds are those things that make us feel upset, annoyed, or painful. There are many headwinds that we experience in our life. When our efforts go unnoticed, or when we are being falsely accused, when we don't get promoted in workplace, or we don't feel valued enough. We are easily blown away by these headwinds. Long time ago, I had some unfair situation where someone criticized me, but I could not argue with that person because she was my superior. That night, I had a dream. I was screaming out to her in my dream to explain that I did not deserve her criticism. My mind was wavering and swirling. At the time, I was not able to have the inner space to observe and embrace my own emotions. Financial difficulties are also one of the common headwinds in our lives. When our mind cannot stand in front of the headwind of money, we are blown away, and people even commit suicide and other crimes. And aging and physical pain are one of the major headwinds too. Having to part from those whom we love and having to meet with those whom we hate are also very difficult headwinds. We now have a worldwide headwind of COVID-19. Rather than being freaked out and agitated, we can keep calm, doing what we can do in this situation, following the safety guidelines. All those safe guidelines, washing your hands frequently, keeping social distance, and wearing a mask, etc. Just like they say, be careful, not be fearful. So tailwinds and headwinds, they are part of our life. We cannot go somewhere to avoid them. Even if you become a monk and go to some remote places like Himalaya mountains, the wind will still blow there. We need to train our mind not to be swayed and keep calm in the place where we are now. To maintain the equanimity, our innate capacity to remain still, we need always be on guard and check our mind to be aware, both on the cushion and off the cushion. When we face either tailwind or headwind, either gentle breeze or a severe storm, observe yourself and see if your mind is swayed by them. Take one step back and see if your mind is floating around or sitting still. Can you see your mind now? So remember to be gentle about it. Do not run away, but embrace it. Without clearly being aware of your mind, you cannot really embrace every aspect of yourself. Without fully embracing yourself, you cannot free yourself from being caught up in all kinds of inner obstacles. I hope the visual images that I have shared today help you for this practice. Thank you.